Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are getting into Chapter 4, System Selection, and we're going to explain this chapter in detail. Now look, if you've ever had a hand in replacing a healthcare IT system, you already know it can feel like pure, unadulterated chaos, right? But it really doesn't have to be that way. Our goal today is to take all that chaos and transform it into a highly structured, step-by-step roadmap. So, let's just dive right in and see exactly how this is done.
Just to keep us completely on track, here's a quick look at our agenda. We're going to cover 1. The system selection lifecycle, 2. Project planning and management, 3. Mastering the project scope, 4. Systems analysis and data, and finally, 5. Designing the final system. All right, let's get moving.
Okay, starting with Section 1, the system selection lifecycle, starting the journey.
So before we even think about looking at shiny new software, we really have to understand the catalyst for change here. Why do this at all? Well, it usually comes down to legacy systems and sunsets. See, most healthcare organizations out there are still relying on older technology, and those are our legacy systems. Replacements usually happen when these systems just stop meeting the organization's needs. Or honestly, worse, when you face a sunset. A sunset is literally the exact date a vendor just stops maintaining a system. Bam, done. That sets a serious ticking clock, right? It triggers an urgent, massive need to buy a replacement before your legacy system goes totally unsupported.
And to survive that ticking clock without losing our minds, we need a really reliable map. Enter the System Development Lifecycle, or SDLC. Think of this continuous 6-step loop as your primary tool, basically your superhero framework to avoid absolute project chaos. In this explainer, we're going to focus heavily on the first 3 crucial stages: project planning, system analysis, and system design. By sticking to this roadmap, an organization makes sure the needs of all the users are actually met without the project totally going off the rails. Let's hit our first real stop. Section 2, Project Planning and Management, Building the Foundation. Listen, planning is quite literally the most critical step in this entire process. Jumping into buying a massive new IT system without a solid plan, it's exactly like trying to build a house without checking the soil first. Eventually, it's just going to collapse. So the absolute first step in building this foundation is establishing realistic goals, and we do that using the SMART methodology. That stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So instead of just vaguely saying something like we want to be more efficient, a SMART goal dictates we will reduce duplicate tests by 25% by the end of the fiscal year. See the difference? This strategy directly aligns your IT goals with the broader business objectives of the whole organization.
Okay, so armed with our SMART goals, we can walk chronologically through the 5 components of planning an information system. Step 1 is the feasibility study. This is where you actually weigh the tangible benefits, like, say, eliminating the crazy cost of paper folders, against the intangible benefits, like improved quality of patient care. Next, Step 2, you set a comprehensive budget. Step 3, you set those goals we just talked about. Step 4 is identifying your project team. Now, this team really should be led by a highly skilled project manager, often someone with a PMP certification. And finally, Step 5, obtaining buy-in. You guys, it is absolutely critical that upper management supports this project from day one. If management shows even a hint of discontent, the employees are almost certainly going to resist the change. It's just human nature.
Now, to keep all these moving parts from crashing into each other, project managers rely on some very specific tracking tools. Take a look at the contrast here between a Gantt chart and a PERT chart. The Gantt chart is fantastic for recording specific tasks, their start and end dates, and figuring out exactly who is responsible for what. You can easily see if you're behind or ahead of schedule. But the PERT chart? That one evaluates task dependencies. It actually shows the interdependencies between activities, which helps project managers monitor the critical path. That means they can instantly see if one single delinquent task is going to cause the entire final implementation date to slip. Pretty handy, right?
Moving on to Section 3, Mastering the Project Scope, Keeping Things on Track. If you want to master your project scope, you have to avoid its absolute biggest threat, the dreaded scope creep. Scope creep happens when items that were never included in the original scope just sort of get added on after the project has already begun. For example, imagine a project starts out to implement an electronic health record, or EHR, in a standard medical clinic. But suddenly, halfway through, someone decides to add the EHR to the outpatient surgery area too. Well, the needs of those two areas are vastly different. Adding this mid-project totally inflates your timelines, drains your budget dry, and demands training and resources you simply have not allocated for. It's a total nightmare. So how do we stop it? Well, I am speaking directly to all the future IT project managers out there right now. Adhering strictly to your project plan is literally vital to your survival. To avoid scope creep, you have to know your desired end result right from the very beginning. You've got to create a comprehensive project plan and follow it as closely as humanly possible. And perhaps most importantly, you absolutely must be able to say no when asked to tack on additional requirements. It can be hard, but you have to clearly communicate exactly how those little additions will completely wreck the timeline.
All right, Section 4, Systems Analysis and Data, Gathering the Blueprint.
During this phase, the project team essentially acts like master architects trying to gather detailed functional requirements. To predict the future environment for this brand new system, teams do what's called environmental scanning, and they break their findings down into internal versus external factors. So internal scanning might reveal that a new cardiovascular surgery service is opening up next year, or maybe there are major changes coming to the medical staff. External scanning, on the other hand, looks outside the healthcare organization. Are there pending state legislations? Is there an aging population in the community? Or maybe some brand new competitors just moved into town. Understanding this whole environment ensures the system you select isn't just going to work today, but will actually survive the expected future.
Next up, to figure out what the staff actually needs to do their jobs, the team utilizes a few different data collection tools. Questionnaires are great. They're perfect for gathering quick, easily tabulated data from a huge number of users, especially if you use closed-ended questions. But interviews, whether they're structured or unstructured, are incredibly powerful for getting users to really open up and talk deeply about their daily workflows and their data needs. And finally, we have observation. Now, watching employees work can be pretty time-consuming. And yeah, it can be a bit disruptive to the environment, but it is incredibly valuable. Why? Because, well, supervisors frequently tell interviewers what they think is happening on the floor, but observing validates what is actually occurring in reality. You get to see the real deal.
All this data gathering eventually leads us to visual mapping. A flowchart, like this sample mapping out a coding process, totally exposes process inefficiencies. By using standardized symbols, a project team can trace the exact flow of information and spot critical bottlenecks, inconsistencies, and problems way before a single piece of software is ever purchased. It basically forces the healthcare organization to take a long, hard look at how it actually does business.
And that brings us to Section 5, Designing the Final System, Making the Big Choices. Okay, now that the team has planned everything out and thoroughly analyzed the workflow, they have to make some crucial structural decisions based on those exact specifications they just gathered. And here is the first massive choice. Who is going to build and maintain this thing? Here we have to weigh cloud computing versus an in-house prototype. Cloud computing basically means renting a vendor-hosted system that you access remotely over the internet. It's great because it offers lower upfront costs, amazing scalability, flexibility, and you don't have to hire a whole team of specialized IT maintenance staff. On the flip side, an in-house prototype is a custom-built system designed specifically for your organization's unique needs. It definitely offers way higher control over things like upgrades and maintenance, but keep in mind it comes with significantly higher development costs and takes way longer to build from scratch. The next major fork in the road is choosing between integrated systems and interfaced systems. Integrated systems follow a best-of-fit model. This means all the applications are from a single vendor, they're designed to work seamlessly together out of the box, and that makes them much easier to manage. Interface systems, however, take a best-of-breed approach. In this scenario, a hospital might buy the absolute best laboratory system from one vendor, and then the absolute best pharmacy system from a totally different vendor, and link them all together using software bridges known as interfaces. Now, this offers highly specialized functionality, for sure, but there's a catch. If that interface bridge ever breaks, those systems completely stop sharing information. And wow, that actually brings us to the end of our chapter analysis. We have walked this complete roadmap, from dealing with the ticking clock of legacy system sunsets to establishing those crucial SMART goals, fighting off the dreaded scope creep, gathering real-world data through observation, and finally making those huge structural design choices. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Armed with this SDLC roadmap, are you ready to lead your next health IT implementation without letting poor planning or scope creep derail your success? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.